Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, the CFML News Edition. It's January 12th, 2021. Welcome back, Eric.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's been a nice holiday break.
Yeah, I haven't seen you since last year.
But
I had to get one more in.
If we have a different host on next week, you'll be able to use it a third time, Gavin.
Yeah, maybe you can use it with Brad next week. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll start off by just thanking our sponsors real quick. Thanks to Ortus Solutions. Without them, we couldn't make this podcast. One way you can say thanks back to Ortus Solutions is by checking out CFCasts.com, which is our video content service. We release new content every week, and we got some more for you a little later on. We'll tell you about that. And also, thanks to our Patreon supporters. So we have actually 60% of our funding for this podcast comes from our Patreon supporters. So if you go to patreon.com/ortussolutions, you can find a package that might work for you if you want to spend your own hard-earned money to support us in this podcast and everything else we do at Ortus. Okay, so news and events. First up, we got a Online CF Meetup this week. It sounds like another Ask Me Anything with Charlie and Dan Wilson. So Charlie Arehart, Dan Wilson, hosting that again. And just want to make sure you know it's a Cold Fusion Ask Me Anything. So keep it clean. But
on topic.
Yeah. They have obviously they're both very well experienced. Charlie troubleshoots daily for customers, and Dan Wilson's been in Cold Fusion and part of a lot of conference organizations and speaking for years. So a lot of wealth of knowledge there between those two. So this Thursday, January 14th, 11 a.m. to 12 Central Time, they'll be there for any of your Cold Fusion questions. So usually they charge good money for their services, so use it as a good way to pick the brains of some experts there.
That's right. Also, in case you missed it, last week's online Cold Fusion meetup, it was Code and Tell, building your own tools with CommandBox with Matthew Clemente. There is a recording on YouTube that we'll put on here, but if you want to go check that out, I believe it was more of a, how do you say it, less of a presentation and more of a kind of code along.
Yep. And then Charlie did want to make sure that we mentioned there is actually a form for the questions, and I'll get that in the show notes as well. And that way you can ask the questions in advance, and they're going to take a little more time to get those questions answered for you in the Ask Me Anything. So I'll definitely include that. Posting it into the chat right now, and we have that in the show notes as well. So thanks, Charlie, for reminding about that. We did not mention that. Okay, so yeah, with Matthew Clemente's session on YouTube, don't forget that every other session, and there's like 270 plus of them, are also on YouTube and Charlie's playlist. So you could spend a couple of months probably watching nonstop. So a lot of great content over the years, and it's kind of cool to go back and see some of the old stuff too. But yeah, a lot of great speakers over a long period of time. So
we have a save the date here for Friday, January 22nd. It's the first Ortus webinar of the year. It's going to be on CommandBox task runners. Grant is going to lead us through that. So that is a great way to utilize CommandBox and CFML to do those make some command line programs, one-off tasks for your repos, anything, build processes, things like that.
Yeah, we definitely use these quite a lot. We've got several task runners that we have in our build processes for generating artifacts, documentation, even running our tests, setting up environment variables, etc. before we run our tests, stuff like that. So they're definitely real useful. So if you haven't checked them out, task runners are awesome. So much easier than writing bash scripts yourself. Cold Fusion scripts are so much better.
Well, I think we've been taken to converting many of our build tools, which, I mean, we've run the gamut, right? We've had build tools all the way back. I remember when I started at Ortus having like an Ant build.
We still
Still don't
have a
know how
couple of them.
Ant works. Some were just all Bash running on Travis, and now we are moving towards using task runners a lot. So yeah, we start up a shell environment, but then we just start up CommandBox and run our task runner. Really easy to keep in the repo to understand. I love this, and you can learn a lot from Grant on these.
Yep, it's a good one for sure. So definitely check that out. If you go to the ordersolutions.com/events, you can check out all the events there, and on the webinars page you have that, as well as some of our previous webinars. You can link to them, which are all on CFCasts. So definitely check those out. Okay, and
you had a couple blog posts this week, or is that right, Gavin?
yeah, so I compiled a few things, and so we thought we'd spotlight them, because if you listen to the podcast, you'll probably appreciate these two, especially. So what we've done is we've taken all of our episodes from 2020 and compiled the 50, because we had 50 episodes in 2020. We had 50 ForgeBox Modules of the week, and made a nice blog post of all of those great things all in one place. And we also did 50 VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week from our 2020 podcast as well. So basically, all those episodes out there, are compiled into one big blog post, so now you've got everything you need basically in one place. So a lot of great content, a lot of cool stuff in there. So definitely go check those out. If you've missed a couple of episodes, you should go listen to them again. But you can also just look right there. So remember, they are in our show notes every week, available on our podcast website as well. So if you want to go one by one, you can, but we have these here. And we actually have 2019s up on the Ortus website as well. But pretty cool to see all of those there. So that's a lot. It's kind of crazy to see how many we go through. And this year, we'll keep doing it. Okay. So next up, we have CSCasts update. So Eric, since this is sort of your baby, I'll let you give the update for this.
My baby. Yeah, so we have two content updates we want to talk about this week. The first one is what's new with ColdBox 6. This is a free series going through some of the additions added to ColdBox 6. It is being added to, so this is not the complete list, but you can check that out now. The other one is the Into the Box LATAM videos from 2020. There's 14 videos, 11 hours of content, all free. Though you may find it a little hard to find on your site because it is in Spanish. And by default, if your browser language is English, we're not showing you Spanish videos. On that browse screen, go ahead and just click the El Salvador flag, which is what we use to represent Spanish on our site with all of our great El Salvadorian coworkers. And then you will see those videos pop into the list beneath you.
Yep, for those watching at home, I'm going to show you where that button is here. You can see the Espanol button. And we turn off the English, and you'll see they all pop to the top of the list right here. So you can have both turned on. As Eric said, you can browse and select that. And if you're logged in, there's actually preferences for it. And there's also a little globe here, which will set your browser language as well. So if you're searching for them and you can't see them, it's probably because it's not turned on right here. So
if you would like to always see both English and Spanish videos, like Gavin said, in your profile, you can set that as your preference. That way you don't have to click on the flag each time. We'll just do that for you.
Yep. So we're going to add a Portuguese flag too, because I know one of those videos in the LATAM series was Portuguese.
I guess maybe we should. We've been saving those flags until we translate the site in that language, so maybe that's our first step.
Yeah, I'm just teasing. So it's good to see different content in different languages, even though I can't speak anything other than English, and even that's pretty poor sometimes. Okay, so next up, we have our conferences and training. So last week we gave you a heads up on what Ortus is planning, but we actually have some conferences as well. So this first one we're going to talk about is VS Code Day. And so VS Code Day is basically a VS Code team and community event live. It's going to be held online, and they're going to have two sessions. You can watch it live on January 27th from 8 a.m. to about 10:30 a.m. So they're just short little 30-minute sessions. They got 5 or 6 sessions, and then they're going to restream it with live Q&A. So if you want to ask more questions, the actual speaker will be out there to answer as well, and that'll be 8 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Pacific, so later that night for different time zones. So that's available at code.visualstudio.com/vscode-day, which we'll share in the chat as well. And then that's a pretty cool event, again free, so definitely one to check out. Then another one, DevNexus, which Brad and Luis have been to every year for, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years, and they love it. So that one's going to be online virtual February 17th at devnexus.com. So it looks like a lot of really well-known people in there, and a ton of sponsors. It's crazy how many sponsors they can get at a conference.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I guess when you're as big a language as Java.
Yep. And that's the good thing about this too. They have a lot of different variety, and I know Luis and Brad like getting a comparison with some of the other frameworks and other libraries and how they do things, and even tying into Java from ColdFusion. They get a lot out of that conference, and it's kind of neat that it's free and online. That's one of the perks of COVID, right? A lot more online conferences.
Yeah, good job looking for the silver lining, Gavin. I was just sitting here thinking how sad I was that we're in the second round, the second year of online conferences.
Yeah, well, I guess they didn't start fully till March, but still.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, you want to give us a recap of some of the things we're planning for Ortus for the year?
Yeah, the dates are still being worked out to be as ideal as possible, but we have some Ortus workshops coming this year. The first one will be a quick workshop led by myself. That's coming here, I believe, early March. We're also looking to bring back our ColdBox Zero to Hero and ColdBox Hero to Superhero, as well as adding a CommandBox Zero to Hero workshop.
Yep.
Additionally, we have our conference plans, which we'll give you some tentative dates here, but of course, dates are subject to change right now. We're trying to work around the current global pandemic. So we are planning an Ortus Developer Week online in May. Ortus Developer Week, for those who are first hearing about it here, is a online 1 week of sessions presented. So kind of like the webinars or the CF Meetup kind of format, but given a few of them each day during the week. In August, we hope to do an Into the Box for Europe, which will actually be a virtual live European summit in August. And then cross your fingers, everybody, and we hope to do an on-site Into the Box in Houston in September. That's our hope right now, that things can progress to the point that that's feasible, and then bringing back Into the Box LATAM this December.
Yep, that's our plan. I'm pretty excited about it. A lot of good content, and obviously we always try and get a lot of great content out to you and include the community in all of those events as well. So we're still planning, but as soon as we have some dates, we'll get that out to you. So, but pencil it in, where we got some good content coming your way. But I also want to mention, if you're looking for more conferences, because you can't get enough, we often put this comps.tech link at the bottom of our conferences section. And if you look in here, look at all the different options they have. I mean, there's tons and tons of different languages and locations, a ton of online ones. But just if you look through January, they've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So they've got stuff for JavaScript. They've got the Laracon European online conferences coming as well. There's a Node Congress. There's a PHP. It's a lot of different things. iOS. So a lot of ColdFusion developers obviously do other things too, and so there's a lot of great content coming up as well. So if you're looking for more, you want to find out some other stuff, definitely check that out. There's a lot of good content in there. We'll have to make sure we get ours put in there as well. So they have some of the developer weeks.
That. They'll take pull requests to add to their data, but I need to figure out how to pull request their site. to add in CFML as a topic.
Yeah, that'd be good for sure
Because
to
I
get us
figure
added.
if you got them all up there, you got GraphQL. That's has to be smaller. Maybe not. I take that back.
Yeah,
But still, it feels like we could fit ours in there.
yeah. It looks like it's something for sure. There's quite a few good languages in there, so I'm sure we could get it added to the list. But yeah, so that's always another option too if you're looking for something else or something extra. But there's plenty of places out there. It's kind of nice to have a list of a lot of good content. So
Right.
okay, so next up on our list, let's get into our blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So the first two we already covered. Those are those 50 ForgeBox modules of the week and the 50 VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. So we won't talk about those too much more. But we do have a few other ones we'll like to share. And so one of them right here is generating new line delimited JSON using JSON object from MySQL. So I hadn't actually heard this term until he wrote a couple blog posts the other week about Angular. And so we don't share a lot of the Angular stuff on here, but it was kind of interesting to see how that's, I guess, becoming pretty popular. Have you heard much about the new line delimited JSON?
I have usually with regards to like huge files. My understanding is the biggest thing. One of the bigger benefits of it is you can stream the file in and know that each line is an item instead of having to wait till you've loaded the whole file.
Yeah. So the big difference between it is usually if you have an array of JSON objects, you basically have the wrappers around it and the commas between them. But I mean, yeah, it's just kind of strange that it's getting more and more popular. I just hadn't heard of it, but always something happening that out there. So and here he was just walking through some MySQL using the select JSON object and how you can basically select items into it, and so you can select the fields directly into the JSON object. You can even do things like Unix timestamp and then formatting and everything, and then just select it as the payload. And then the neat thing is it just spits it out line by line for each one, and it's ready to go essentially. So it's pretty neat. Like I said, there's a lot of cool JSON tools and features in MySQL, especially once you hit 5.7, and I'm sure in 8 is even more. So again, a nice little tool if you're starting to work with MySQL and JSON. There's a lot of great things in there, and it's just another simple way for you to basically generate your own JSON objects on the way out.
Right. Yeah, and the JSON stuff is different for each database grammar. But if you're using, I think it's SQL Server 2016, Postgres has probably had it forever, and they'll shove it in your face. Or MySQL 5.7. I think Oracle, I don't remember versions anymore. Oracle, you have to be on like 12 or C. I don't remember. But each of them have their own versions of these JSON functions, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like them. I've been using Postgres for a couple of clients, and they've definitely got some pretty slick tools in there. But yeah, they've had it forever. I know that much. So very cool. Okay. So next up, we have one from Will DeBruin. So let's share that.
Will this week published a new ForgeBox package. His first official ForgeBox package. CBI 18N, which stands for Internationalization, JSON Resources. So I believe this is a expansion on Ortus's CBI 18 module, and adding in a few niceties such as using JSON files instead of Java property files, hierarchical resources, using directories for resources, some nice stuff. I know that he's also been working with us at Ortus to get this merged into the official CBI 18N library, but it's really nice that open source means he doesn't have to wait for that.
Yep.
Right? You can take the code, you can publish it. It's open source. It's free to anybody to modify and publish their own. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, I know that him and Luis have been going back and forth on pull requests and everything, because as he mentioned, he rewrote everything from tags to script and a lot of different pieces in there. So it's a big rewrite, and so I know that he's been working along with Luis, working on that. And Luis says it's pretty ready to go. It should be coming out pretty soon too. So that's good to see a new version coming out soon. And thanks, Will, for all the work he does. He does a lot of work with this because obviously IE18N is important, especially with a lot of your European customers have to deal with languages a lot more than we do here. So he's worked really hard on this, and yeah, there's some cool features in here. I definitely like the idea of JSON.
I've been dealing a lot more with internationalization lately over on CFCasts, and most of ours was in Vue. And one thing I've noticed with Will's improvements here is it kind of brings the Ortus module up to modern standards. A lot of the things in here are things I got used to in Vue, and I remember when I had to come back to using the Ortus one, I thought, oh, well, it would be nice if these worked the same, and with Will's, they do. I'm excited to get this merged into the Ortus one as well, but in the meantime, I'm glad that this can be out there for everybody else, because, Ortus, we have a lot of modules, we have a lot of things to juggle, and sometimes, what is the phrase? It's something about a big ship turning slowly. I don't remember it.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. And I know that they've been working hard, and Will's been great working back and forth with Luis on this just to get everything up and ready. As he mentions in this blog post too, that module is relied upon in several different other modules. So when we bump that, we have to update other modules too, so they all stay in line. But yeah, good to see that. And he mentioned he did update a lot of the documentation too, so that's always a big helper for us. A lot of things going on. It's great when not only the pull requests and fix code, but the documentation is vital as well. So looking forward to that. So we'll let you know as soon as it gets released as the main module too.
Okay. Next one, we have an article from Gray Desmond called Warmup Sketches. And here he talks about an analogy between the warm-up sketches an artist will do to kind of get their creative juices flowing and what we can do as developers. He lists a few resources that we've liked to talk about in the past, like Code Wars. He mentions Hacktoberfest or Advent of Code, or even going to your own code and doing some refactorings as ways of warming up for the day. I thought that was a really great analogy.
Yeah, I had a habit there for a while trying to do a Code Wars every morning before I got started, just to do a little puzzle, something fun, just to get moving and whatever. And it was good. I think it really does help. It's better than going and reading your email before you start work, that's for sure. But I've done
one
that
of them
too.
Motivates you, the other.
Yep, exactly. So
I think I'd like doing the same thing especially with Code Wars, until I don't know if I just got more advanced ones, but I'd get to some where they take me, an hour to figure out, and I thought, an hour isn't much of a warm up. It's kind of just work. So
yeah, exactly. Some of the short little puzzles make you think or whatever. They're definitely got some positives in there. Okay, so next up here we have a little blast from the past. A few of you around might remember Adam Cameron. He's still blogging, not as much as he was before, and definitely not much on ColdFusion, but this one here I thought might be interesting for those out there. So he's been working on getting a website, a Vue.js website, up and running, backed by PHP 8 and MariaDB, but running in Docker containers. And so this blog post is referring to some of the Bash environment changes that he made because he was getting a little frustrated with doing so much in Bash and Docker. So I thought this might be useful. Some of the other things might be too. He's going to be looking through some of the other pieces. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to get in there and make some changes to your Bash setup and looking through Docker and everything. So some of these may be of interest to you guys there. So it's good to see Adam's still blogging and he's being his normal Adam self. But some good content in here. As usual, he's real thorough. A lot of good content. So definitely check that out. And if you're looking at Docker too, he does have some Docker stuff that he's been playing with lately as well. So good to see more content out there, and hope he's doing well. Next up, we have a tweet. So basically there's a deal that's going on right now. Julian Duque, I don't know how to say this name, released a new book and had a giveaway, but in his tweet he also mentioned that if you missed out on that, it's okay. There's a 40% off coupon. So if you use the code PODISH, so PODISH19, you can get 40% off on any Manning Books products. So just little thing there. If you want to get some reading for this new year started, and you're looking at some Manning's books, you can save yourself 40% with that code. Okay. So next up, we have our CFML Jobs.
That's right. So right now we have getcfmljobs.com, over 60 Cold Fusion positions from 40 companies, 31 locations, 5 countries since July 1st. 2 new jobs this week. There is a full-time software engineer in Roseville, California.
Yep.
And there is a contract position for a Cold Fusion developer in Omaha, Nebraska.
And since I wrote the notes, there's actually one more job. So there's a full-time Cold Fusion architect in Charleston, South Carolina as well, that just got posted in the last probably half an hour or so. So here we got another job position for you. So that makes it 3 for today, for this week. So some good positions there. And if you guys are looking for someone as well, you can also post a job there. It's free. That's done by one of the members in the Cold Fusion community. So we appreciate that. And if you haven't signed up to, they do post on Twitter at CFML Jobs, so you can check them out as they come through. So good to see that. Okay. So next up, we have our ForgeBox module of the week. So this one's an interesting one. This is TinEye, a ColdBox module by Sean Daniels. And so the TinEye API is ideally suited for image and profile verification, UGC moderation, copyright compliance, and fraud detection. So I always find it kind of interesting when they start using, AI or computer algorithms to do some of this stuff. And so this one basically will help you find an image and see where it's being used. Now, it's funny because I used to work for a company. It was an internet provider, and I kid you not, we found the exact complete ripoff of our website with a couple of things changed in Texas. They just basically completely stripped everything out of our website and just changed like the phone number, the email address, and like one other thing, and everything was exactly the same. Complete ripoff. And it wasn't like it was a great site either, but they ripped off logos and everything. They just changed like the city. It was kind of interesting. And so, things like this, protect yourself and whatnot. It's kind of interesting. So something like the MailChimp logo, for example, if you put this into the system, they'll actually go out and search. And for this MailChimp logo, you can see they found like 654 results, but they searched 45.4 billion images, and that's pretty impressive. So the API ties into this service, and there's some fees obviously associated with that. But if you want to just try it out yourself, you can just go to tineye.com and just either upload an image or paste a URL to an image, and then it'll go ahead and search for you. It'll tell you if it's found in collections or if it's in like stock photography or whatnot. So it's pretty neat. And so if you guys got a logo or you got a photo or something that you're done, it's one of those things where you can use that. So it is up on ForgeBox as well, so you can check that out. But I thought it was pretty neat. So that's our ForgeBox module of the week. Have you ever had any copyright issues with any of your cool photos, Eric?
No, I don't know if I have any cool photos or big things big enough for that. But now I want to go paste in the CFCast logo. It's so new, but I'm wondering if something's already started scraping it.
Scraping it, or just maybe like linking to it to advertise it. Because that's the other thing too. If you're wondering how many people are using your service, it might be a way. Like if we throw in the ColdBox logo, how many sites have the ColdBox logo, for example? And maybe they're talking about it, referencing it, etc. Or how many people have a similar logo to yours. If you're looking at designing a logo, sometimes it's good to throw a logo in there and see what's similar. Make sure you're not copying someone else too much. So
or if you're buying a logo from somebody, make sure they haven't sold it to somebody else.
yeah, like that's more what I was thinking too. A lot of those template companies, what Fiverr and stuff too. A lot of the times, like you see the same intro video on every company out there because they use the same thing. But logos, you probably want to make sure it's a little more unique. Okay. So I see a lot of chat in there. Anything special there? And everyone's talking about JSON.
James is telling some fun stories about how they had their site stripped, like you talked about, with the ColdBox one, but they kept the company name in the source code.
Oh.
And so they kept going to the hosting company and they could get the site taken down, right, after their claims were proven. So that's kind of a little funny anecdote.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I know we got a lot of censorship going on in the news right now, which we'll try and keep out of. But one of my customers, when I worked at that ISP, we had tons of hosting customers. Right, it was, people could upload their sites via FTP, and I think we're one of GoDaddy's resellers at the time. But GoDaddy shut down one of our entire servers for a DCMA claim. And we're trying to figure out why. We didn't know what was going on. We couldn't get a hold of anybody. It was kind of a nightmare. And then we finally found out that someone's forum license had expired, and so they made a claim, and they shut down our entire server because of one website's forum license. And I was like,
man.
"You're kidding me?" For like a $50 a year license, you shut down our entire server? We're out of here. Like, that's just not acceptable. I mean, you could have called us and said, "Hey, your license down. Can you shut down the site?" We would have said, "Sure," or something. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. So good times. Anyway, I'm sure everyone's got a few other stories about that type of stuff too. But okay. So hints, tips, and tricks of the week for VS Code. So we've already mentioned this earlier in the show, but we think VS Code Day should be the hint, tip, and trick of the week because one of the sessions is actually VS Code tips and tricks. So you can't get much better than that. So you actually have someone who works on the core team showing you all their tips and tricks of VS Code. I think that'd be a pretty big session there. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. And again, it's kind of nice and bite-sized too. Just a few hours. You don't have to kill your whole day to watch it. And it's showing after hours as well if you want to catch up later. So you can watch it in your free time.
I think we should make a watch party room on the Ortus Slack channel that anybody wants to join can chat about it at the same time.
Well, that might be kind of fun. And it is on the 27th. What day is
It's a Wednesday.
A Wednesday. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, maybe we should. So in the Box team, we'll make a little channel and let you guys know. We can, chit-chat a little bit in there. We'll probably learn a few things for the future. Hints and tips and tricks. So, yeah.
Things we want to bring over to the CFML and ColdBox and CommandBox extensions.
That is definitely a good point. Yep. There's lots of cool things we can make better. So if you can't think of it yourself, steal it from someone else and repurpose it for you. Okay. So, last but not least, by no means, is our Patreon supporters. So these individuals personally support our open source initiatives like this podcast, CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, TestBox, all the other great box products we have out there, and even some of the bad ones. Just kidding.
There are no bad box products, only neglected ones.
Yeah. Hey, we're working hard here, Ortus. I mean, aren't we upgrading our build processes for all our old products? We figured out how many products you have, and you got to update them all, right? So.
Yeah. We're getting off of Travis, moving to GitHub Actions, trying to modernize into some task runners. But when you have, probably 100 or more modules and libraries and all that, it takes a while.
Yeah, but yeah, so your support helps us with all those open source projects as well as this podcast. So we do thank you. We appreciate it. And if you want to find out more about the Patreon supporters, you can go to patreon.com/ortussolution. And you can also go to ortussolutions.com/about-us/sponsors to see them all. But just so you can listen to them right now, we're going to read off all the names.
Yes. A big thank you to Ben Nadal, Brett DeLine, Carl Van Stetten, Charlie Arehart, Da Lee, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, David Bellinger, Didier Lesnicki, Dom Bellamy, Edgardo Cabezas, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, Jan Yannick, Jason Diger, Jeff McLean, Jeremy Adams, Jonas Eriksson, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamery, Kai Koenig, Laxma Titrahadi, Mario Rodriguez, Matthew Darby, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, Patrick Flynn, Ross Phillips, Scott Steinbeck, Sean Odin, Stephen Klotz, John Wilson, and Yogesh Mathur. Thanks for sponsoring Ortus Solutions and all the work that we do here in this podcast.
Yep, and one more thing before we go. Charlie just reminded me, and I missed this earlier. I'll add it to the news section for those reading the notes. But today is Flash's Death Day, so no longer supported in any modern browsers. And so for some of you, you may not care. Some of you may never used it. I know a lot of people that use Flex are kind of sad by the whole Flash thing. But it does actually affect people, because those who are still using CF 2016, which is still not officially dead, it's still running, it does affect you because the server monitor is working Flash. So basically, it's a good time to update because the 2018 does not use Flash in the PMT. No Flash for years in Fusion Reactor or CFusion, but just wanted to let you know that if you're using 2016 and the new browser update breaks your server monitor, that's probably why, because Flash is now officially no longer supported by any modern browser.
Is there like a browser out there that's going to stick it to a version that still works with Flash? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I know that they donated all the code to Apache, and Apache's done a lot of work with certain things. So yeah, Adobe support from CF 2016 ends in February, and so that includes the security update. So I'm pretty sure they're not gonna, do anything there. But yeah, I'm not sure of any browser that still supports it. Like I said, it's one of those things. I mean, the funny thing is, I still run into it periodically where I go on a site and I can't use something because it requires Flash and I'm on my phone. But anyway, so
maybe Opera. Opera does everything, right?
Yeah,
is that still around?
Yeah, no.
You remember the Opera browser?
Yeah. I thought it was still maintained too. I'm not sure.
I just remember it as the browser that whenever you'd complain about a browser, somebody would tell you that Opera does it, and Opera does it better.
There's always somebody like that for something. Anyways, well, I hope everyone has a great week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye now.
Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.die.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.